Oscar, while this criminal conduct may seem a world away, it is very often taking place right in our own backyards.
Sex trafficking is when someone uses force, fraud, or coercion to manipulate someone to commit an act that's against their will. The groups that we've seen are people that have suffered some trauma in early childhood. And that could be molestation, it could be rape, it could be emotional abuse, physical abuse, unstable household. There's always an element of drug addiction involved. And because of the abuse that's happening in the homes, a lot of these people will choose to run away at a very early age. And when they do, they realize really quickly that there is nothing out there. They cannot work. They have no food, they have no clothing, no shelter. So they become targets for predators.
When a child runs away, they step into a dangerous and unpredictable world. The risks are hidden, like the faces of these cards. And for 1 out of 3 runaway children, the danger of sexual exploitation reveals itself within just 48 hours.
The National Human Trafficking Hotline reported 221 cases of human trafficking in my home state of Pennsylvania and more than 10,000 cases nationwide.
When I became a teenager, I started to hang out with the wrong kinds of people, seeking the love and validation in not good groups of people, and I fell into drugs and alcohol. And during that time, I don't have the people around me to speak life into me, to speak good things into me, to tell me, you can do whatever you set your mind to, and this is how you can do it. Let me support you in that. So I just continued to dig myself in this deep, dark hole. They were just preying on my weaknesses, vulnerabilities. They were really taking advantage of me.
Sex trafficking, which is an element of human trafficking, is actually one of the biggest problems in the world. With human trafficking, it's difficult. You have to look for certain signs, and a lot of times the victims don't even believe they're victims. That's what makes human trafficking kind of so diabolical. And what happens is, because they're an outlier, it makes it easier for these predators to target them and essentially get them alone, and then fill their head with nonsense, which makes them think that, okay, this is actually something
a guy,
I want.
Same MO. He wants to be with me. He's gonna love on me and protect me. And he turned around. He turned out to be one of the worst men I had ever come into contact with. He would be very physically abusive to me. He would hold knives to my throat. He would never cut me. He would just scare me. He used these tactics to keep me with him. He didn't have to chain me to the bed. He would just scare me or beat me up and just keep me there in that way. I'm planning my escape, and he found out, and he pulls out a gun and shoots me because he had just found out I am trying to leave. I am trying to escape him. I was more in a state of shock because it went off. There was sparks and smoke, and I'm thinking, that is so weird.
So the most important thing you really have to do is you need to avoid blaming them. And I don't mean outright, like, how could you do this? But there's certain questions that you might ask, like, why would you do this? And that might put them on the defensive. So usually what you need to do is you need to listen, and more importantly, you need to be patient. They've been convinced that they're the ones who are going to get in trouble. So I have to first convince them that
Tremendous efforts
I'm here
are
to
made
help
every
them.
single day to recover these victims. Only 1 out of 100 people return from being trafficked. Sex trafficking is a pervasive yet underlooked and underreported crime despite its global outreach. In 2014, the International Labor Organization estimated that sex trafficking generates $150 billion in annual revenue. The fact that this amount flows unnoticed through the global economy highlights how hidden this epidemic is, thriving on silence and systemic failure while affecting and hurting millions.
I was able to run out of the door and kind of get away from him out of this hotel room where we were. it was built up, you know, there's hotels, there's gas stations, there's McDonald's. I mean, all of these places. And I am running past these places crying, no shoes on, with a man chasing me. Nobody did anything. But somebody could have stopped. Somebody could have offered me support. Somebody could have just called 911 and said, there's a man chasing this woman down the street. Nobody did anything for me.
Just increase public awareness that all of us have a responsibility and a role we can play working with nonprofits, working with law enforcement.
This year's report shows how some of these same technologies can be deployed to uncover and disrupt trafficking.
Which is why every single member here today needs to come together as we fight this modern-day slavery.
To the policymakers in DC, this epidemic can only be stopped by supporting the organizations that combat sex trafficking as well as educate the public on what really happens.